So we're now at the part of the Moving Forward series episode where we're talking about teams that just miss out on the playoffs, and this is also the penultimate Moving Forward series episode before we talk about teams that getting eliminated from the playoffs. And in the next Moving Forward series episode, I'll talk about how I am going to do these teams that get eliminated from the playoffs before ultimately talk about NYCFC winning MLS Cup. But today we're going to talk about the team that just missed out on the playoffs out of the Western Conference, and that is the LA Galaxy. And for the Galaxy, this has been a very strange season for them because this season, it was a season where you could also say that it was kind of a tale of two halves, with the way that the first half of the season, it was an incredible season for them, and that it seems like Greg Vanney, who we talked about how he was going to be a right fit for this team, he immediately make an instant impact, and at times it looked like this was the old Galaxy team that we know under Bruce Arena, a team that pretty much win every single week, and a team that looked like an MLS Cup contender. And then the second half of the season happened, and boy oh boy, the second half of the season looked like the Galaxy team that was in the post Bruce Arena era team that is either mediocre or just straight on be one of the worst team in the league. And unfortunately, that second half bad run, and especially down the stretch when they had that 9-game winless run heading into the crucial stretch of the schedule, pretty much damaged their hope of potentially. Well, it didn't really damage their hope in terms of making the playoffs. That hope really kind of damaged as we headed to decision day, where once again Galaxy fans has to suffer more heartbreaks during decision day. But it was that 9-game winless run really kind of maybe start to open the unthinkable, the fact that the Galaxy could miss the playoffs despite the fact that they were in a playoff position for all but the final day of the season. But overall, in terms of the season itself, they finished with a record of 13-9-12 and finished with 48 points. They scored 50 goals this season, give up 54 goals, and had a goal differential of -4. And as I mentioned, they just missed out on the playoffs by finishing 8th in the Western Conference. Top goal scorer of this team, unsurprisingly, Chicharito finished as the top goal scorer, and I believe he finished 3rd in terms of the Golden Boot race with 17 goals this season. And then followed by that, you got a huge drop-off with Kevin Cabral, Sasha Kljestan, and Ryan Revolson, and Samuel Grandsir, all with 5 goals for this team. Top assist leader for the Galaxy, you got Julian Araujo, who has got a lot of interest from overseas, and that there's a lot of talk that maybe Araujo could be another player that could be going to Europe this offseason. He finished with an excellent 7 assists, being the top assist leader for this Galaxy team. And then followed by Victor Vasquez, who at times he kind of show like the old Victor Vasquez during his peak of his power in his day with Toronto FC, finished with 6 assists. They got Samuel Grandsir and Sebastian Lletget with 5 assists, and then Sasha Kljestan with 4 assists to round off the top 5 assist leader for this Galaxy team. And also, by the way, for Sebastian Lletget, I still haven't heard any talk about, is it official that he is going to be moving to the New England Revolution? I mean, I've heard the rumor that it is going to happen, but it's kind of surprising that no official announcement has been made, and especially with the way that report saying that the Revs were very close in terms of signing him. I thought eventually they were going to do so. Although that being said, I might be completely wrong. I might actually just look back at after this video and find out that Lletget have actually did sign for the Revs, and what I've just said probably doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's been a long day, by the way. This is the beginning of my week and the beginning of what is going to be another long week for me at work. So yeah, just ignore what I said if that is actually not true. But if it is true, the fact that Lletget hasn't moved to the Revs, it's kind of surprised the fact that is the case, because a couple of weeks ago it says he was very close to doing so, and now it's just that deal has just kind of gone silent in terms of we have no update of whether or not that move actually have officially made. Now, what went right for this Galaxy team? Well, if you ask Galaxy fans, they will be saying nothing went right for the team, which, yeah, there was a lot that went wrong for this team, especially in the second half of the season, but there were definitely some things that is positive coming out of this team. Well, the big positive is Chicharito finally kind of exceed or finally met or even exceed expectation with the money that they pay him with a bounce back breakout year this season with 17 goals. And I truly believe that if he didn't have that injury in the middle of the season, he would have won the Golden Boot. Like the amount of goals that he was scoring every single game, that looked like it was the old Chicharito that we know during his prime days with Manchester United, Real Madrid, and Bayern Leverkusen, scoring almost every single week. And then unfortunately that injury that he suffered in the middle of the season kind of really bothered him, and even when he come back, you can see he was still not 100% healthy. The emergence of Jonathan Bond. So another player that, as I said in the Columbus Crew episode of how Miguel Berry is a guy that you probably have not heard of in the beginning of this season, and you didn't expect him to be a breakout year, but by the end of the season, you probably know his name by now. And I think Jonathan Bond is another one of those guys. Although I will say that when the Galaxy signed Jonathan Bond, I remember I did a News of the Week episode talk about that, and I thought this looked like it was just an afterthought kind of signing for the Galaxy, because this is a guy that have barely played for West Brom and hasn't really been a regular starting goalkeeper. So how in the world is he going to fit into this team and expect to be a decent goalkeeper in replacement of David Bingham? Well, not only the fact that he completely proved me wrong, but there was a lot of Bond reference whenever he made that save. Like, I remember there was that one game when the Quakes play against the Galaxy. I mean, you know how I don't like Twitter commentator, but I just could not help myself when they made a Bond reference. And again, it's not the first time that of course has happened, but what an amazing season Jonathan Bond has had. And I think he could have won goalkeeper of the year have this team actually made it to the playoffs. And that I will say that there was times where Bond did kind of struggle a little bit, especially down the stretch, but my oh my, throughout the beginning of the season, he was an unstoppable force, and he was a guy that I thought that, not only the fact that he's going to win goalkeeper of the year, but he could maybe even win newcomer of the year. And it's been a while since we have actually had a goalkeeper winning newcomer of the year. In fact, I don't think any goalkeeper has ever won that award, and he is on point to potentially be the first goalkeeper to do so. But yeah, and what an amazing year he of course has in the Galaxy. Finally have found their future goalkeeper, somebody that they haven't really had a decent goalkeeper, I don't think, ever since when Kevin Hartman was actually the goalkeeper for this Galaxy team. And then of course there was that shades of the old Galaxy team in the first half of the season. Like, the first half of the season, watching this Galaxy team, it was just such a fun team to watch. And this is also where a lot of people talk about how not only they can make the playoffs, but they look like it could be an MLS Cup contender. And then there was definitely a lot of talk about how the Galaxy look like they're back to where they were, and Greg Vanney has instantly made impact and just kind of let off where he was with TFC, being very successful for the team, and now coming over to the Galaxy and basically kind of use that momentum and carry this Galaxy team to be such a decent team. But unfortunately, this is where we transition to the what went wrong part. And the first thing that went wrong for this team, as I mentioned, it was a tale of two halves for this Galaxy team. And that second half of the season, boy oh boy, they just completely collapsed. I mean, I will say that in terms of the collapse itself, I will say that their collapse was almost at around the same level as the collapse that FC Dallas suffered in 2017. I mean, I think if I was going to do a video in terms of talk about the biggest collapse we have ever seen in MLS history, I would always say that the FC Dallas collapse that they had in 2017 is the biggest collapse I've ever seen. Like, I cannot believe a team that was literally at the top of the table for majority of the first half of the season, and then just slowly collapsing itself and eventually miss out on the playoffs on the final day. That was absolutely unthinkable. And the same goes with this Galaxy team. People were thinking that this team was at least, at very best, going to get home field advantage in the playoffs, and that 9-game winless run, as I mentioned, killed that hope. But little did we know that they were even when they did start to try to get going again, they went into an inconsistent form. And then the last couple of games when they had to win some of those key games, they weren't able to do so. And that decision day game, I mean, that was pretty much the death blow for them, and especially in the game. I remember in that decision day game where they were kind of chasing the game throughout the entire one. Like, Minnesota was by far the better team in that game, and I think the only reason they kind of got lucky to be staying into that game was the Loons was trying their best to try to carry the old Minnesota tradition of choking on the final day, but even then they weren't able to do so, and their fate pretty much was confirmed as soon as RSL, of course, scored that late winner. And that I also remember that famous line that Greg Vanney basically shouted at the sideline, talking about they need one more goal, and that also is where it got a lot of Galaxy fans angry, and the fact that why in the world did Vanney feel like he should say that in the 91st minute, when they should have done it in the first minute and actually just kind of go for it and hope to get a win so that they can clinch their playoff spot. No one, of course, can score consistently besides Chicharito throughout this season, and that was kind of the case. I mean, I think as much as the Galaxy was very successful in the first half of the season, one thing that I was a little bit concerned with is the fact that Chicharito was the only guy that was scoring this goal. And, you know, I just had a fear that, you know, if you're going to be that one-man team, yeah, I wonder if eventually either, you know, my biggest worry is that either Chicharito is going to cool off a little bit and teams are just going to start double team him and just kind of force other players around this team to score besides him, or the fact that Chicharito is going to get injured, and then we'll find out whether or not if the Galaxy can recover. And yeah, they didn't recover. Like, as soon as Chicharito suffered that injury, you know, there were a couple of guys that did try to score the goals. I remember Ryan Revolson was one of those players that was having incredible form right after a couple of weeks after Chicharito went down with an injury, but his goal scoring form eventually cooled off, and that's also when the Galaxy just had that dry spell where they just could not score goals because none of these players that they had was actually good. And I will also say that another thing that kind of went wrong that I didn't put here is that most of the signings that they made last offseason was a complete bust. Like, guys like Kevin Cabral, a guy that I'm pretty sure is one of the most hated player in the Galaxy fan base because of the way that he was supposed to be a very good potential young potential player, and it just feels like this season, you know, I will say that he still does have that potential to be a decent player. I think the only thing that he might need to work on is his finishing, because he does have to get gifts of being a good player that always get into a good position to score, but it's just that finishing, that final kind of instant to try to score goal that is lacking on him. And I think that's kind of what a lot of Galaxy fans are very critical of him, and it's understandable. I mean, when you're a striker, you know, it doesn't matter how much you do in terms of the build up and how many fancy moves that you made. If you're in that final moment where you're supposed to put the ball into the back of net and you aren't able to do so, you are going to get a lot of ridicule from fans because of it. But it wasn't just him that was a huge disappointment. I mean, guys like Rancière, a guy that I thought he was maybe be the next Roman Alessandrini for this Galaxy team, knowing the fact that, you know, Rancière, like Alessandrini, came from League and it seems like this maybe is the direct replacement for him. And yeah, Rancière looked nothing like the Alessandrini when Alessandrini was with the Galaxy and had an underwhelming year. And the only guy I would say that maybe actually wasn't really a big bust was Victor Vasquez, but even then, Vasquez did kind of at times show his age and why he maybe is a little bit washed up, and that why we of course saw TFC eventually move on from him a couple of years ago. But at least he did show some flashes of that. But other than that, there really isn't any player on this team that you can say that they signed in the last offseason or even in the summer transfer window that actually made a huge impact to this team. And then the last thing, of course, went wrong for this team, and I know this sounds very cliche, and I say this every single year when I made a moving forward series about the Galaxy, but it's true. The defense still suck. Like, don't let the fact that 54 goals they gave up this season is not bad in terms of the Galaxy standard, because this is a team that regularly give up like 60 plus goals, and you would expect that they should have like the worst defense, which, you know, the 54 goals they gave up is actually not the worst defense in the West. But that being said, it's also one of the worst. And let's also remember that the only reason why they didn't give up as much goal as they did was because of Jonathan Bond. Like, if Jonathan Bond at time this season didn't make those incredible save, and if we even go into like advanced kind of stats and talk about expected goal, like Jonathan Bond, he must be almost leading the league in terms of preventing expected goal that goes in. And if he didn't make those incredible save and had to be superhuman in some of these games, this team would have given up more than the 54 goals that they give up. And that and there was also times where that defense was just so bad that it kind of hung Jonathan Bond out to dry, and that there was just no way for him to kind of prevent the ball going to the back, and then even in his best effort to make those incredible saves. So yeah, it's a huge indictment, the fact that the defense there is still sucks. And it's hard to believe that this is what, the 4th or 5th year that we're still saying this, of the fact that no matter what the Galaxy try to fix this defense, it still suck. And it's almost getting to a point. It's remarkable that of course is the case. And moving forward, heading into this off season, you wonder, are they going to maybe make some more defensive replacement? I mean, I'm assuming they're probably will, and that they're going to try to once again fix it again. But don't be surprised, no matter what they try, there's the old saying, there is the definition of insanity when you do the same thing over and over again and you don't get the same result. And it feels like it's getting to that point where the Galaxy are going through the motion and basically creating the definition of insanity of trying to fix the defense, and yet at the end of the day the defense still sucks. But moving forward for this team, one of the things that I talked about before with this Galaxy team is that they actually have a DP spot open this off season. I mean, that feels like something we have not said about this team in a long time, because of the way that they've been always balancing this DP slot line for a while. But now with Jonathan Dos Santos leaving to Club America and opening that DP spot, they have a chance to basically use it, and I have a feeling they'll probably use it on the attack. And I'm actually going to talk about who is going to be their new GM, because I think Galaxy fan forgot the fact that they actually don't have a GM heading into this upcoming season after Dennis DeClosa decided to leave the team. But that's also where I bring to the next point, where maybe sign Pavone and give him another shot. I mean, again, I've said this before in my News of the Week episode. The only reason why they didn't sign Pavone was because they just did not have enough DP spot to re-sign him when they did decide to bring Chicharito into this team. Well, now that they do have enough space, why not for them to decide to re-sign Pavone and maybe give him another shot for this team? Because there's no doubt that when he was with this team, he was one of the most electric player on this Galaxy team. And I can imagine if Pavone does re-sign with this team, and the fact that you also have Chicharito, who could maybe be once again in an incredible form like he did last season, this attack all of a sudden can be a very deadly attack. And that Pavone and Chicharito dynamic duo partnership could be easily one of the most scariest dynamic duo we'll see in the league. So we'll see whether or not if the Galaxy will decide to do so. And again, this is a team that's not afraid to spend money, and even though it's probably going to cost them a lot to try to re-sign Christian Pavone, they're not afraid. They'll throw $20 million if they need to in order to re-sign him. But we'll see which player they're going to use, or are they going to once again do the old Galaxy kind of method, which that's been one thing that I also criticize about this team, of the fact that they always tends to just kind of star chase and kind of chase some of the best player in the leagues just to get butts in the seat. And while that kind of method maybe worked a couple of years ago in terms of getting you to the playoffs, that just does not fly in these days. So it's just kind of getting to a point where this team maybe need to realize that they need to probably stop doing that, and maybe actually sign a promising player that could actually come in here and do some good thing, and maybe a young player that they can develop them as a good DP player before selling them off to Europe, as that's kind of seems like the trend that we've seen nowadays in MLS. And then last thing about this team is who's going to be their new GM heading into this upcoming season. As I mentioned, Dennis DeClosa leaving this team during November, and they don't necessarily need to find a new GM. Why not just give it to Greg Vanney? I mean, let Greg Vanney be the guy to, of course, sign players. I mean, I think when doing his days with TFC. He was also, I think, the sporting director for that Toronto FC team. So it's not like Greg Vanney doesn't have experience in terms of it. Why not give him the keys to basically make the signings that he has and build the team that he has? So in some way, it's not necessarily a bad thing, the fact that Galaxy doesn't have a GM heading into this upcoming season, because they can't technically have one with a guy that is coaching right now and have an experience to basically build a very decent squad. So yeah, I expect Greg Vanney is probably going to be the new GM, and if anything, they probably have already announced that he is the next GM, and he's really going to take control of the team in terms of the signings that he's going to make to trying to improve this team and get this team back to a playoff contender. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for this moving forward series. Talk about the LA Galaxy. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video? And if you're a Galaxy fan, what went right, went wrong, and most importantly, moving forward, how is this team going to look heading into next season? But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.